welcome to my third video. This one's the second of my vinyl collection overview. So I'm going to go through the various Harvest Records re-releases and compilations that started back in 1974 after ELO's contract with Harvest had finished and they moved on to the Warner Bros label. So let's get cracking straight away and have a look at this one. So this is Showdown. It's ELO's very first compilation LP, and at the time of its release, Showdown being the third single on the Harvest label, didn't actually have a parent album. It was a standalone single release at the time, and so Harvest decided for their first re-release they'd call it Showdown and feature obviously the title track plus 105 Theatre Overture, Roll Over Beethoven as the single edits, and a sprinkling of all the tracks from the first and second LPs. It's quite nice. It's one of the first LPs that I actually found in the record shops when I started listening to ELO in the late 1970s. And this particular one, as you can see up here, is got a sort of subtitle on it, Masters of Rock. So that implies that it's actually European import. So I found this LP way back in the early 80s at a record shop in Wolverhampton. I remember buying it and making sure I got the pink vinyl version as opposed to the standard black vinyl version. And this is one of the earliest examples of coloured vinyl ELO album, and the only one I'm aware of on the Harvest label. And it's from Germany, and it's a really nice item. I wouldn't say it's massively rare. It's not that easy to find, but you will find copies on eBay if you go looking for it. So I'm guessing it's worth maybe £20–25, something like that. This one's virtually unplayed. I've had it in my collection for what, nearly 40 years, something like that. And I really like it. Obviously there is a standard UK version which I currently don't have in the collection, but I'm sure to pick one up at some point, which is virtually identical to this. It just hasn't got the Masters of Rock thing at the top there. And the other thing I like about this LP is the cover. So this is a very early 1970s photo of ELO in a TV studio performing 105 Theatre Overture. And the only reason I know that's the song they performed that day is because in the internet age with YouTube, I came across a video of them performing this song on an old BBC programme called 2Gs and the Pop People, and it's on YouTube now. If you go looking for it, you'll see this actual footage performed live in colour. It's quite cool. It's very retro, of course, but there you go. ELO's first compilation album, and on pink vinyl to boot. Next up is a Move compilation. I'm doing these in chronological order, by the way, so I'm going to go year on year. So this is 1974 again, and Harvest decided to do a Move compilation, very similar to the Showdown one for ELO. So they've taken a standalone Move single, the last one that Move released for Harvest, California Man, and they've given it its own album title, and they've also added Tonight and Chinatown with the other two Harvest singles, along with several tracks off the Message from the Country LP and a B-side or two. Quite a nice collection. There's no lyric sheet or inner imagery on the bag. It's just plain white inner sleeve, so I'm not going to get it out. But yeah, that's a nice cover. It's another TV performance cover. I imagine that's Roy Wood in Teddy Boy gear, probably performing California Man with Jeff and Bev on some other TV show. Of the two LPs, this one is probably the hardest one to get out of those two. Also associated with that release, or at least I'm pretty sure it's associated with that LP release, is a standalone single. California Man, as most fans know, was the Move's last original release for Harvest Records. But they did do one other single release back a year or so later in 1974. They decided to put out Jeff Lynne penned song Do Ya as an A-side, backed by also another Jeff Lynne written move song called No Time, which is off, I think it's off Messages from the Country LP, as a standalone single release. So this is not California Man related, this is Do Ya on its own as a move single back in 1974, and I'm pretty certain it was probably released as a sort of promotional thing to promote that compilation LP to get a bit of extra radio airplay. Consequently, it didn't chart, and it's quite hard to find, very hard to find in actual fact. Most fans, I don't think, are aware that it actually exists. So I've only ever seen a couple of copies in person over all the years that I've been hunting around record shops and record fairs. I managed to get this one off eBay for maybe £4, which is about $5 converted. And I guess the seller didn't realise how rare it was, but it's not easy to find that one. So I'm very pleased to have got that. Okay, so fast forwarding past 1975, as I'm not aware there was anything released that year. In 1976, we get a Wizard compilation. If you like, making up the trio of compilations based around hit single titles. This one's called See My Baby Jive, big bold yellow and red Wizard font there. Again, another photo of what I think would probably be a live performance on television, where he was in his Wizard get-up. So this compilation's got all of the Wizard A-sides from the early 70s that didn't appear on the Wizard studio album called Wizard Brew, which we looked at in the last video. So it's got See My Baby Jive, Ballpark Incident, Angel Fingers, and I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day, plus all the B-sides, plus a couple of album tracks off the aforementioned Wizard Brew album. The back of it's got a photo there of Wizard from a television performance somewhere. Yeah, so that's the Harvest compilation for Wizard. This one's relatively easy to get. Lots of copies on eBay. Usually find it in any record stores that have a sizable collection of vinyl. There's normally a copy hanging around somewhere, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get. Of those three, the Move one's probably the hardest one to get. And funny enough, quick diversion to CD, that Move compilation is the only one that made it onto CD in later years. This came out in 1999, celebrating 30 years of Harvest Records, and it's a shame EMI didn't put out the Showdown LP and the See My Baby Jive compilation LP in CD format, because the three of them together were really good in CD format. I think this one's quite nice. But there you go, one CD copy of that particular Move compilation. So fast forwarding again to later 1976, we get a Roy Wood compilation on the Harvest label. This one's a bit of a anniversary release. So back in 1976, Roy Wood was celebrating 10 years as a professional recording artist, and EMI were well aware of that, and so they decided to put out a double LP to celebrate 10 years of Roy Wood as a sort of hit maker. It's called The Roy Wood Story. It's got this sort of silk linings, artwork, sort of give it that sort of gifty anniversary feel. The inside is a montage of different photographs throughout Roy's career and a brief biography over here. And you can see there photographs of Roy. There's an ELO group shot up there in the corner, some Move shots, some Wizard shots. Yeah, quite a nice LP cover. Plainness and the usual green Harvest labels. What's it got on it? Let's have a quick look. So as I said, it spans 10 years of Roy Wood's hit-making career. The first track is a little different. It's called Make Them Understand, which was one of Roy's very first, if not the first, songwriting duty he had back in 1965, and that's when he was with Mike Sheridan's lot. Mike Sheridan being a well-known Birmingham musician of the day. We then get for the rest of side one, starting with Night of Fear, all of the Move A sides that Roy wrote, and again through side two, all of the Move A sides that Roy wrote, the vast majority of which were big hit singles, including one, number one, which was Blackberry Way. Side three gives us a couple of ELO album tracks that he wrote for the first ELO debut album. Then we get the Wizard A sides, and for side four we get Roy's solo A sides, plus a couple of B sides. All in all, good collection of songs, vast majority of which were hit singles, if not top five singles, and including 3 number ones. And that's a good collection. And pretty much after that, Roy's hit-making career started to die off a little bit. So this LP represents an awful lot of his successes, and it kind of underlines Roy's ability to write a good hit single, as opposed to maybe writing, whole albums worth of concept material, which was more Jeff Lynne's style and less Roy Wood's style. He's more of the hit maker. Yes, there we go. Good double album. That's fairly common to get. You'll find lots of copies of that on eBay. And as a lot of things with records this age, it's down to condition really, as to what you might pay for that. Also associated with that LP was a 3-track EP that Harvest released, and they just grabbed the first 3 hit singles by Wizard, Angel Fingers, Ballpark Incident and See My Baby Jive, and put them out as a little compilation single to support that album. Okay, so jumping 1 year ahead to 1977, we get ELO's second Harvest compilation, The Light Shines On. This album's quite well known. It was around in the shops a lot as new, and a lot of copies were sold over a long period of time, although it never charted, of course. But if you go to car boots, record fairs, a few record shops that have popped up in the last few years, you'll find a lot of copies of this all over the place, along with numerous copies of Out of the Blue and a New World Record. This one's quite easy to get hold of. Again, all down to condition as to how much you might pay for it. Nice piece of artwork. It's from the photo shoot that EMI did for ELO's debut album. Unused photo shots of the principal band members there, and on the back another shot from that session, along with a few sleeve notes and the track listing. It's a plain inner and green Harvest label, and this one's come out under a subheading called Harvest Heritage. So back in 1977, EMI were releasing a lot of Harvest re-releases and compilations under this Harvest Heritage moniker. So there's about 20 different albums, I think. ELO's was one, and Roy Wood was another one. I don't have a copy of that, but for those of you that might be interested, it was a re-release of Boltless in a different sleeve. So there we go, Light Shines On. And we also get a unique single coupling to go with that LP. Showdown and Roll Over Beethoven were put out as a sort of double-sided A-side single to promote the compilation. Yeah, so that's that. And also in 1977 we got this. It's not a British release actually, but although I'm going to concentrate on British releases, I'm going to include records in my collection that were reasonably well known to exist and available on the British High Street. So anything that was in HMV or Virgin Megastores or department stores. A lot of these cheap European imports ended up in department stores, places like John Lewis or Rackham's or those sort of places. You might pick up a unique compilation that maybe you wouldn't find in the normal independent record stores, where you might buy more rare stuff. So this is basically a double album of ELO's first and the second albums coupled together onto the banner Milestones. In Europe, in France and Holland and Belgium, it was quite common for record companies to put double LPs out where they would grab the first and second albums of well-known artists' careers and put them out as a double LP, maybe at a budget price. And you can see there the inner artwork is ELO 2 without the song title lyrics, which is quite nice to see actually. There's no inner bags, just plain white labels and the green standard Harvest lining. And I've seen double LPs like this for the French keyboard musician Jean-Michel Jarre. I've seen them for ABBA, I've seen them for The Jam. Yeah, so there's quite a few of them around. So that's 1977. There is another release from that year. It was a DJ promo only release of the Showdown and Beethoven single. You can find that on eBay now and then in a generic sort of Harvest 12-inch sleeve, which is quite unique. I do have a copy of it, but actually I don't have it with me. I've left it somewhere in the cupboard or the eaves, so I'm going to have to hunt that out for a later video. Right, jumping ahead 2 years, 1979. So ELO are really well known and famous by this point in time, in early 1979. They've had A New World Record that come out, they've had Out the Blue come out. They're now internationally famous and best-selling artists in the UK as well as the USA, where they first became big. And so Harvest decided to put out a second volume of The Light Shines On, unmentionably titled The Light Shines On Volume 2, again under this Harvest Heritage moniker. The cover's a bit different. This time they go for a more contemporary shot of ELO performing on a TV show. So the imagery, although it looks good, it doesn't actually relate to the material that's on the LP. I think that photo is probably from an ITV program called Supersonic. It may be their performance of Evil Woman, I think. I'm sure that's on YouTube, so you could always check it out if you wanted to. The back of the LP again has some liner notes plus a track listing, which is basically everything that ELO had released, officially released for Harvest, that didn't appear on Volume 1, The Light Shines On. So between the two compilations, you have basically all of ELO's material, including A-sides or A-side edits, plus one unique B-side, I think. And Harvest also decided to put out or re-release the Showdown Well Over Beethoven single again to promote the compilation. This one's a demo version, which is not too difficult to find. The only thing that distinguishes this from the other release 2 years earlier is the catalogue number, that's all. So if you are completists and you want to try and get every version of the single, just check the catalogue numbers on eBay before committing to buying anything. And this time round they did actually release a 12-inch copy of that single, the sleeve design being the same as the parent LP, of course, with a little bit of blurb on the back. This one's virtually unplayed or almost mint condition. You'll find this on eBay as well. Again, not too difficult to get hold of, just down to the condition of the sleeve, if not the record itself. Same year, 1979, and also under the Harvest Heritage moniker, The Move got a compilation. The Move, open brackets, Shines On. So kind of tying in with the ELO Shines On releases really. Roy, Bev and Jeff on the cover there. Big coloured bold album cover. More of a plain back, again with sleeve notes and track listing. I think the track listing is a little bit different from the earlier Move compilation that we looked at, but again it's got the A-sides and some choice album tracks from Messages from the Country. Its rarity is probably about the same as the California Band compilation. funny enough, you can get some of these from Holland and Germany on eBay more than you can in the UK. So I tend to wait until I can find them in the UK shop or record fair, where I can judge the quality of the cover and the record a little bit better. No single release for this, just a standalone compilation. Okay, heading on into the 80s, and the Harvest re-releases get a little bit thinner on the ground, few and far between. We do get another European input, which is just called Electric Light Orchestra Collection, and it's one of these releases that fits into a larger body of re-releases that are going on at the time, certainly around Europe. And this one's got a 1978 group shot from the Japanese leg of the World Tour, I think. Again, doesn't match up to the material inside, but who cares? It just looks good. So I bought this probably from one of the Birmingham department stores back in the early 80s. That's where you tended to get some of these releases. The back is advertising the rest of the ranges, artists there, plus the track listing. As you can see, there's some writing up here, which is a star collection with some German writing. So that's early 1980, I think about 1981, that one. Next up, we get standalone single release. So for people watching this video in the United Kingdom of a certain age, you'll probably remember a reissue specialist record label called Old Gold Records, which had a whole vast catalogue of artists' records that would be re-released in single format and later on CD, cassette and some 12 inches, where they would take an artist catalogue, back catalogue, mainly of single releases, things that have been hits a long time ago, and put them out. And the reason I mention that is because this release is in that vein. It's very similar. EMI must have noticed how well Old Gold were doing with their re-release programs and making a profit on it. And they decided to put out some records of their own in a similar sort of marketing exercise. So they're calling them Golden 45s. So about 20 or so releases were made, ELO amongst them, and this one's got a unique combination of 105 3/8 overture and rollover Beethoven there, and then a list of the other artists that have also got a release in that range. And this is very, very hard to find. I bought this from Virgin Megastore in Birmingham back in 1984, and I do remember seeing a Wizard release as well, containing two of their hit singles, one of which I'm sure must have been See My Baby Drive. I didn't buy that. Perhaps I should have done, because I think that's probably even harder to find than this one. But this one's going to command prices, I would say, of £20 upwards, just for a single release. The sleeve is very easily marked because it's got this gold relief on it, so I'm not going to pull the sleeve out. I'm just going to pull the record out so you can see that it's got a unique blue Harvest label, which is the only time I've seen that is on this particular record. I'm not sure that it appears anywhere else in the Harvest range. It probably does with other artists, but not with the ELO stuff. Yeah, so quite hard to find a single. For any Queen fans, I know that one of these exists for a Queen. I think it's Killer Queen and Crazy Thing Called Love. And I've got that in a Queen collection of that I have elsewhere here. And I might do a video on Queen singles of the 70s and 80s at some point in the future when I've gone through the rest of the ELO catalogue. Yeah, so hard to find. And the last piece of vinyl I have to show you is from 1986, and it's called First Movement. Again, another Harvest compilation of the same sort of material that we looked at before. This has got a kind of strange, unique, futuristic painted cover, which I wasn't sure of back in the day, but at some distance, after many years of collecting, I'm not too fussy now these days. I quite like the old the old covers there, very more 80s I guess than 70s in style. And the back you get the usual essay on the band's history and the track listing. And this one, again, no inner, but I'll get it out. You do start to see black Harvest labels with silver writing on them. That seems to be something that Harvest were doing on their back catalogue from the mid to late 1980s. And the two Light Shines On LPs I showed you earlier, I didn't know until very recently, but late on in the 80s, EMI was still pressing quantities of those up for sale in the shops, and they were on black labels, which makes them a very rare variant of those two particular compilation LPs. I've never seen them in the flesh, but they do exist. So needless to say, if I come across them reasonably cheapish at a record fair or car boot or something, I shall snap them up. Yeah, that's not too easy to find either now, because it came out in 86, so CDs were starting to take over with people spend money on those rather than the vinyl versions. But I managed to get this off eBay a few years back. I think I paid about 11 quid for it, although it's a really good condition. I do think it's probably worth a bit more than that now. And that's it as far as the vinyl is concerned for Harvest re-releases and compilations. I'm just going to show you a couple of CDs. So back in 1989, Harvest celebrated 20 years and released a compilation of Roy Wood's work and Jeff Lynne's work. Which one's that's Jeff's, isn't it? That's Roy's. Yeah. And there were vinyl versions of these, which again I didn't buy because I was getting into the CDs at the time, so I bought the CD version. And I think the CD versions either have more songs on them or the songs have longer running lengths. I'm pretty certain of that. The vinyl versions are slightly more edited. So I got the CDs at the time, and what you've got here, if you take the Jeff Lynne one, you've got a combination of ELO material, Move material, and surprisingly some Eagle Race stuff as well. I think the back catalogue for the Eagle Race was owned by EMI, so they're able to put a number of tracks from those three periods onto one compilation. With the Roy stuff, you've got Wizard, the Move, ELO, and of course some solo material all mixed in there as a compilation. So two nice compilation CDs. You can still get them maybe £15–20, but the vinyl ones sold a lot less clearly, so they're very difficult to hold off. Again, if I see them I shall buy them and add to my collection, but I don't recall seeing them in the flesh. So there you go, that's all the Harvest stuff that I've got, and a potted history of their re-releases. I'll just say that if you're really into that music and you haven't got the CD versions, go and do some research and have a look at them online. There's some fantastic box sets and remastered versions of the original Harvest material, and some compilations that have some unique versions of tracks, such as quadraphonic versions, early versions, early takes that didn't make it to the finished product. And before long they're going to become discontinued, and you probably won't be able to get them without paying a pretty price through eBay. So I would highly recommend getting those remastered releases on CD as well as backfilling on a vinyl collection, if that's what you've been buying. Yeah, so there we go. So that's that video. I'm going to do another one shortly on the Warner Bros. Years, which shouldn't take too long. There's only a handful of records in there, but I'd like to cover it off in its own sort of video anyway. Right, so until then, take care and I'll see you soon.